Access to Democracy is made possible by donations from the following organizations. Thomson Reuters, a global company with expertise and insight to unravel complex situations in the areas of law, tax, compliance, government, and media. Their worldwide network of journalists and editors keep customers up to speed on relevant global events. Thomson Reuters, The Answer Company. Crutchfield Dermatology, a full-service treatment center and medi-spa in Eagan. Their goal is to help you look good and feel great with beautiful skin. With service built around courtesy, dignity, and respect, Mayo-trained Dr. Charles Crutchfield personally treats each patient and is acknowledged as one of the nation's best physicians. The Minnesota Twins are looking forward to another great season in 2023, led by the return of All-Stars Carlos Correa and Brian Buxton. With the return of numerous players who were injured in 2022 and some new acquisitions, another division crown and a return to the World Series are in their sights. Established in 2007, 45th Parallel Spirits was among the first 50 micro-distilleries in the United States. Based in New Richmond, Wisconsin, all aspects of production occur at our facility. If you're interested in visiting and learning more about the 45th Parallel Distillery, please check our website and plan a visit to tour our facility and taste our spirits. Truestone Financial, with locations in Minnesota and Wisconsin, has proudly served its members since 1939. Truestone engages, educates, and supports its members to ensure they have the tools to empower their financial well-being. Truestone Financial, your neighborhood credit union. Learn more at truestone.org.
Welcome to Access to Democracy. Alan Miller with you today, and we have a first-time guest, Rob Jung.
Hello, Alan. Thank you for inviting me.
How do you spell Jung?
Jung.
It's not Y-O-U-N-G.
No, it's J-U-N-G, like yes. Carl Jung.
Rob is a writer, but he's not just a writer. I'm going to read what he says that he is and let him explain. I've been a lawyer, a sawyer, an inventor, and a singer, an entrepreneur, a provocateur, a historian, a thespian, a gourmet cook, a wine snob, a race car driver, a fishing guide, an explorer, a dreamer, a storyteller, and a writer. I like hats and vintage cars, baseball and conversations, mysteries and Manhattans. And I must say that in terms of mysteries, you actually revived Minnesota Mystery Night.
Yes, it was a 15-year run for an event called the Beer Stube, or the Book Stube at the Beer Stube in Hastings, and it kind of ran out of gas. The pandemic sort of did it in, and they tried to do it remotely, and it didn't really work very well. As
it did with so much, it wiped so many things out. But you revived it.
Yep, we brought it back. And
it's really, it's in Axel's once a month, the third Monday of the month.
Correct.
And it's been a sellout just about every Monday. And what you do is bring in two writers, and they bounce off each other in a really interesting way, which I have now stolen, and we're going to debut Writer's Corner here in April.
I have heard that.
And with the David House Wright, and yeah.
So David will be awesome. He is he's one of the more entertaining people I've ever met.
I frankly credit David with the fact that my first novel came out, because if it wasn't for him and his blistering critique, I would never have gotten it out.
Yeah.
And yeah.
Well, he's a fun guy to be around, so he'll be a great guest for your first one.
Now, he's also, I'm trying to think of her name, but I just blanked on
Julie Clausen?
Yeah.
Yeah, Julie's a romance writer.
Yeah, she wasn't available this time. She's coming on probably closer to the fall. But
who's he in conversation with?
Another female writer, Holcomb, something like that. I'm not
on the blank.
I just blanked on it, but
okay.
In any event, now you have a book coming out.
I do. I've got a book coming out June 6th. It is the third book of a trilogy called Judgment Day. And started out with a book called The Reaper that was released in 2019, and in 2021 I did The Sower, which was the sequel, and now Judgment Day, which is the last of the story.
Yeah, I think we have some clips that we can put up of The Reaper and The Sower and Judgment Day too.
Yes. I think.
So tell us about Judgment Day. I've read a clip from a very interesting lawyer clip, and of course you were a lawyer, so
I still am, actually.
a competency hearing. And,
yeah, the clip is from a hearing where this elected U.S. senator who has been charged with murder is her competency to stand trial is being questioned. That's what the clip is about. The story is the story that about this woman, Magnolia Canaranzi is her name, who was elected as a U.S. senator from Massachusetts. And the day before she was supposed to be sworn in, she was charged with murdering her own mother. And this is the story of that. What happens after that, the charge of that, being charged with murder, being incarcerated.
Well, it's a very unique approach to a thriller, and you write thrillers.
I write thrillers.
Yes.
I call this one a psychological thriller. It's actually, could be called a political thriller too, but it is mostly psychology. It is her story told primarily through her eyes.
I called my first one a political thriller, and people said, well, it wasn't really a political thriller, but it was more political than thriller. So, well, who knows?
That's in the eye of the beholder, I guess.
Now, who's going to publish it?
The publisher is Hawk Hill Literary, which is what do they call that? An imprint of Ingram, which is, as you I'm sure know, is the biggest book distributor in the world.
Yeah, Ingram is now doing ours.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yeah, they go do it through Ingram Spark, it's called. And I just actually gave the final approval to the final draft of the book and ordered the first batch and for my distribution and personal use. But June 6th is the kickoff, and the month of June will be spent, basically
this
promoting.
This is very timely then in terms of our interview today.
It also, sometimes you create the wave and sometimes the wave catches up with you. And I thought this morning after I read the headline in the newspaper about the ex-president being indicted that this seems to have caught the wave of being a timely or at least poignant story.
And how many books are going to come out of that?
Yeah.
Fiction books.
Yeah, luckily I'm ahead of the curve because mine's written and ready to go. So
yeah.
So I got lucky.
I had the same situation with luck with mine because I had written about the water crisis 2 years before the water crisis hit.
Yeah.
And the book came out at the same time all the publicity about the Colorado River and the water crisis hit. So the timeliness certainly helped.
Sometimes you get lucky.
Yeah.
Not often in this writing business.
I can't say that I'm prescient, but Minnesota has an incredible amount of writers, of good novelists, very disproportionate to the size of the state. Why do you attribute that?
Well, it is difficult to try to pinpoint anything. We have a great resource in the university and college system because a lot of them have great creative writing divisions, departments. We have some great independent resources like The Loft, which is
one of the outstanding literary,
in the country
programs in the country,
yeah.
Right?
And lends itself to assisting and coaching and teaching and writers of all kinds. I mean, when I started out, I was a newspaper writer, way back a long time ago, and then I went from there to being a lawyer, which entails a lot of writing.
You're
and then
really eclipsing my career, because that's just how I started.
And so, then you start writing fiction, thinking this is going to be easy because that's what I've written my whole life, And then you learn after the first manuscript or two that you really know very little about writing fiction.
It's not so easy.
And then you go back to school and you go to places like the Loft and learn the craft, and slowly but surely you work your way into the position where you get a book that you hope is palatable to the public.
So did you practice law?
I still am, 50 plus years.
50 plus years.
Yeah.
Good for you.
You're 51 right now, so.
And I didn't last that long. I only lasted about 26 years. But,
I've got a handful of clients that when they finally disappear or get tired of me, that will be the end of it. But I don't ever say no.
They won't give up.
They won't give up, yes.
But you're also an inventor and singer. Now,
that's true.
I'm not going to ask you to sing, but what do you invent?
I invented the first digital fish scale. I'm also an avid fisherman, and the fish scales that were in existence at the time were mechanical fish scales, which worked until they got wet, which happened, on an almost instantaneous basis if you're fishing with them, And so I took the idea that you could get very accurate scales at a meat market, and why couldn't you do the same thing with a handheld fish scale? So for the decade of the 80s, I worked with 3 separate engineers and finally developed and patented the first digital fish scale.
And it's out there now?
It is, there are multiple versions of it out there now. My patent is expired, and so now there's all kinds of versions out there.
Now you're also a thespian, so tell us about that.
Well, I've been fortunate over the years to do a handful, not a lot, but a handful of play acting, and I like being in front of the camera. It was always fun. I loved being a trial lawyer, except all the work you had to do behind the scenes to get there.
Yeah.
But being in the courtroom was fun, and or at least enjoyable, if not fun. And so I did some religious theater. I did a little community theater, not a lot, but enough to be able to say, yeah, I did some acting.
Sharon loves theater, so as a result, we are members of Guthrie and Park Square and Theater and Around, and we've gone to some others also. But
been to all of them. That's the other. Not only are we blessed with great writers, authors in the Minnesota, but we have the same with theater. I mean, the live theater in the Twin Cities is
between
just
the two coasts. There's nothing that like touches Minnesota in terms of several of the arts.
Yep, that is true. Eat your heart out, Chicago.
Yeah. Well, Chicago is there, but last in baseball and last in. Speaking of baseball, that's another of your loves.
Oh yeah, I've been at one point in time I thought I was going to be a professional baseball player back, way back when, and I had the bad fortune of stepping in front of a fastball that hit me in the face, and I wore glasses back then too, and so they spent a little time in the emergency ward picking glass out of my eye. And after that, I could never keep my foot in the batter's box.
I can understand that.
Yeah, but I love baseball. I follow it closely,
We just got, the Twins just became one of our sponsors this year.
Really?
Yeah. Awesome. We don't have our opening. We'll have it back when this goes, live out to the world, and you'll see it. But Dave St. Peter's been coming on the show for about 15 years now, usually at the beginning of the season, and we talk about predictions, and at the end of the season we hold our heads. But
this is going to be a good one.
But this year is going to, and certainly started out well yesterday.
Yeah, yes, it did. I'll tell you a little baseball story that is little known. I was the chairman of the Metropolitan Sports Area Commission, which was the organization that ran the old Met Stadium and the North Star hockey rink out in Bloomington. And when they tried to bring professional soccer here, they came to me, the people who wanted to bring it in. Basically, Lunds Byerly's Super Value people got together, bought the Denver franchise, but they didn't have any playing dates. And so they came to me as the chairman, said, "We don't have playing dates." I said, I don't have any either. Calvin Griffith controls them all. He said, "Well, what do we do?" I said, "Well, no problem." He said, "I set up a meeting with Calvin." So we went and set up a meeting with Calvin, and these pillars of the industry, if you were intimidated by Calvin. Well, Calvin and I got along like
everybody was intimidated by him, from what I understand.
Not, for some reason, he and I got along really well. And so we sat down, and in about an hour, we worked out 9 home dates for him through the Twins, weaving its way through the Twins schedule. And that's how the Minnesota Kicks ended up here.
And so
thanks to
you were responsible for soccer, and today we have the Loons, and we have
Yep. So, but that's just that's a little part of the. My life's been filled with lots of good stories.
I can see that from all of this here. A gourmet cook.
Yep, I do that. I'm primarily Italian, but I've been known to dabble in other areas. I enjoy being in the kitchen a lot.
And a sommelier, really? Well, you call yourself a wine snob.
Yeah, I'm not. I don't have the training, the legal training to be a sommelier. Yeah, but I do have a working knowledge of the wine industry, somewhat in Europe, but primarily in California and Oregon. I was born in the wine country of California, so even though I didn't stick around there very long, I think probably the vapors got to me or something.
Is that it?
That must have been.
I have a glass of red wine with dinner every night.
Well, I don't every night, but I've been known to drink my share of it.
Occasionally I'll have a vodka from 45th Parallel, which is also one of our sponsors.
Oh, okay. Nice segue, by the way. That was good.
Yeah. If you've never been out to them in New Richmond,
I'm not.
It's a wonderful story of a fellow who went to Europe to learn how to become a distiller, started out with 45th Parallel vodka, and he has won all sorts of awards, and they have expanded 4 times. He's got a big facility, and we have to go out there sometime. You'll really you'll enjoy
New Richland or New Richmond?
New Richmond, Wisconsin.
Wisconsin, okay.
Yeah. Which is a story in and of itself, because he's from Minneapolis. He just moved to New Richmond, as a matter of fact. Wanted to set up here in Minnesota, and the fee was something like $12,000 or $14,000. So he got a hold of Wisconsin, $1,000. He went into business. Since that time, Minnesota has cut their fees tremendously. But it's a great story. 45th Parallel Liquors.
Liquors, okay.
Yeah, they have a great vodka. And
I know some folks over there. I knew the fellow that was the what was his title? He was the business development guy for the city for a few years. He's passed away since, but
the place has grown by leaps and bounds in the 12 years that he's out there.
His name was Jerry Brown. I'll give him the credit for it, posthumously.
This is Paul Werney, and I bet Paul Werney would be well known. Now, you're an explorer also.
Well, I'm an explorer in the sense that I've traveled in every continent except Antarctica. It's still on my bucket list. I actually I was lucky in that sense, because my wife worked for a international NGO, and she ended up spending a lot of time, and she had a 9-year gig in Africa and 8 years in South America, and I got to go with her at a lot of places. And then as our youngest daughter was growing up, we decided that we were going to introduce her to a lot
So, like Topsy, you just growed from there.
Yeah, it did.
Yeah.
And we have.
And what about a race car driver?
That was in my younger days, but that also was one of the best jobs I ever had. I was a newspaper writer, what we called a rim rat at the Duluth News-Tribune. And I worked the rim of the sports department along with 4 other writers at the time. And I got assigned to the stock car beat in the summer. So there's 3 tracks up there, Superior, Duluth, and Hibbing. And I thought, well, if I'm going to work, I might as well race. So actually, I built a stock car and I raced. I'd raced before down in across Wisconsin area, but it was a pretty good gig. I got paid by the newspaper while I was chasing my hobby. So
we have so many parallels. When I was back east, I was working for Newsday on Long Island, and they needed somebody to cover the flotilla, the sailboat races. So I spent a week out, and I became a sailor after that. I spent a week out there with all the races in the Great South Bay. So it really strikes me there's so many parallels.
It really is. Yeah, it's funny about
between
that.
us, and except you're young and I'm not.
And we've become writers in our dotage. Yeah. Alan.
When did you start really writing full time?
Started writing full time about 10 years ago, I guess. I continued to practice law and still do, as I said, and I've got a lot of other things that I fiddle around with. I owned a fishing tackle company for a while, and then I sold that. But anyway, it started, as I said, back when I thought I knew how to write, and then the first manuscript is safely tucked in a drawer someplace, never to be seen by humankind.
That really is a shock, isn't it? When you think you can just sit down and write. Write a novel.
It's quite a comeuppance.
Oh, yes.
Yeah.
You know, you say, I've written all these briefs, I've argued in front of all these courts. When we moved out here from the East, when Thompson bought West, won a couple of national awards writing particular publications for Thompson. And
that's a different deal, isn't it?
You know, then and of course then I got involved in teaching. But then you sit down and you say, well, I'm going to knock this out. Well,
nothing to it.
I am 60,000 words into my next one right now. And,
good for you. I haven't started my next one. I've been trying to put together the marketing side of the one coming out in June.
You know.
I know what the next one's going to be. I've had it in my mind since 2016. It came out of a trip to Ireland. So I know where it's going. I just have to get it started.
Once this goes, of course, when the book comes out, then you're going to have book signings and you're going to have publicity. Yep. And you do your own publicity?
No, I do. I have a local publicist named Rachel Anderson.
That's funny. I just got a proposal from her.
From Rachel? Yeah.
Yeah.
She's really good. She has made my life so much easier. And she's very good at getting media attention drawn to you and your work. So, I'll give her a plug.
Very lucky. She deserves it because I got a really interesting proposal and I have to sit down with her. I was very lucky as a result of Minnesota mystery writers. I actually got the lead story from Marianne Grossman one Sunday. And that came as a complete shock, opened up the paper, and there I am, there cool. My book is. And,
that's awesome. Marianne is a treasure.
She is.
Just is so good to writers of our genre, particularly, but to the Minnesota writers generally across the board.
I'm hoping that whoever takes over for the Star Tribune is of a similar ilk.
I would certainly love to. I've become at least a talking acquaintance with Laurie Herzl, and I needle her about her blind spot when it comes to mysteries and thrillers.
Yeah, it seems to be, but
she promises that someday she will come to Minnesota Mystery Night. I told her a long time ago when we first started it, I said, if you come to Minnesota Mystery Night, I want you to be my conversation partner. So
that would be really interesting.
It would be fun.
Yeah. So let's talk about your book that's coming out, Judgment Day. We only have a few minutes left, believe it or not.
Wow. Time flies when you're having fun.
Oh, yeah. we find that all the time.
Yeah, I'm sure. I'm sure. As I said, it's the third book in a trilogy. The book starts out, the trilogy starts out, basically there's the first book, The Reaper, is two novellas under one cover. The first half of it is historical fiction, because the whole story revolves around a painting that was done by a famous Spanish artist named Joan Miró back in 1937 to be displayed at the Spanish pavilion at the Paris World's Fair in 37. When they tore the pavilion down, that painting, and the name of the painting is El Segador, which translated into English as the Reaper, thus the name. But when that pavilion was torn down, the Reaper disappeared. This is all historically true, and has never been found. And which is really something, because it was really a mural. It was 18 feet tall and 12 feet wide, and it's hard to lose a painting.
Well, I was going to say, you can't stick that in your back room.
No, you don't carry that out like the Mona Lisa. You know? And then so that segues into how that missing painting becomes the focal point in a struggle between a struggling artist today, living in St. Paul, and his estranged mother. And that turns into mayhem and murder. And there's the mother of his estranged mother, his grandmother, who raised him, is murdered in that book at the end of the book.
And that led into the next one?
Then the next book, The Sower, was about the solving of that murder. And The Reaper is about post-solution and the charging of this U.S. senator with murder. And it was an interesting learning experience writing this book, because I learned that you can charge as long as you've been elected, doesn't matter if you've been sworn in or not, but as long as you've been elected, you can't be removed if you're a senator or a congressman, except by a 2/3 vote of the body in which you sit.
Impeachment, yeah.
And if, you know, with particularly in the Senate, I picked the Senate on purpose because particularly in the Senate, you've got the filibuster rule, so which means you got to hang on to that 40th. That plays a role in this whole thing. And
that led up to Judgment Day. And now you have another book out also, don't you?
I have a book called yes, how soon we forget, Cloud Warriors, which is a story that's set in the Amazon rainforest of Peru and Ecuador, and in the San Francisco Bay Area. Basically, it's my fictional rant against the greed of the pharmaceutical industry is what it's about.
That's good.
But it's a little paranormal.
And on the 7th day, he rested.
Well, on the 7th day, which is the 7th of June, I hope to be very busy. So, but so then the next one is, as I said, the next one's set in Ireland and England. I really need to go back to Ireland again and spend some time doing some on-the-ground research so that I get the details right.
Well, we'll see you again on April 17th at Axel's.
Yes.
And we wish you really good luck.
Thank you.
With Judgment Day.
And I wish you good luck with your book and the new one that's coming out as well.
It's not breaking records with sales.
Well, you know, and being an independent author, you will see him. In fact, you have the thing in front of you about this month's Minnesota Mystery Night. The featured author is a retired emergency room physician named Tom Combs.
I saw that.
And Tom has a great line about independent authors, and I've borrowed it, used it many times. So Tom, this one's for you. It's amazing the tens of dollars that an independent author can make.
Rob Jung, thank you so much.
Alan, thank you.
And we'll have you back again sometime.
Well, thank you. I'd love to.
And thank you.
It's been most enjoyable.